Greetings, greetings. This is the Tracktion team this year, doing our very first live stream instead of our annual trip to NAMM. We all missed having that human interaction, I think, like everyone else is around the world at the moment. So we thought we would throw up a live stream and have a Ask Us Anything Q&A. We can run you through all the nice new products we have coming. You just saw the flashy video that our wonderful Daniel did in the UK. Yeah, we can chat about those, give you a bit more insight into what they're going to be doing, when you can get them. And yeah, it's an open Q&A for you guys to essentially walk up to us as if you had been able to at the booth at NAMM and ask us any questions that you want. So with that, let me sort of run around the team here and do some intros. So I think down beneath me here, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, we have Dave Rowland. He's head of software. He's our guru that manages all software, but is particularly focused on Waveform and the DAW engine. To my, that way, we have Taiho, who is our wonderful virtual instrument product manager. He does a lot of the management and design and sound design and all that good stuff.
Good morning, everybody.
He is homeschooling today, like many parents around the world. So he's dipping in and out, and hopefully, well, his son always has important stuff to say as well. So I'm sure we'll hear from them later.
Yeah,
further across that way, we have Roland, who is also on the Waveform team. He is Dave's right-hand man, the guru of all things Waveform. You guys are probably pretty familiar with him as Fugbug on the forums, whether it's Juice or our own KVR forum and whatnot. So he's here. He just had a haircut yesterday. I mean, we're all reeling from this new look he's sported for today's presentation. And then down there in the corner is Wolfram, our wonderful virtual instrument developer, mad scientist, sat somewhere in the wilds of Germany, you know, fostering deep thoughts about virtual instruments. So he likes to be naked most of the time, so he's not on camera today. So, you know. Anyway, where to start? Okay, so let me think about how our video ran. So FM, I mean, I know it came up on the forums. We sort of mentioned it last year at NAMM, and it's taken us a whole nother year to get to almost completion, which is going to be in the next few weeks. So let's sort of dive in there. For those of you who don't know much about it, which is probably most of you, the FM project actually sort of started off as something that we sort of bit off and thought, yes, this should be fairly swift, which is why we announced it last year. And Wolfram and Taiho have just gone deep dive on it and developed something that really sort of smashes FM really into the future, both in terms of capabilities, the way it works. Myself, as a fairly synth novice, have been playing with it, and you know, it is surprisingly easy to use, yet utterly sort of, you know, contemporary capability. So Wolfram, I mean, you know, your best set to sort of run us through some of the bleeding edge sort of aspects of the synth. Why don't you pull it up and give us a quick tour around it?
Okay, yes, I will. Let me just try to get my screen shared again, or maybe Yvette has to do it. She probably has to. Ah, yeah, there it is.
There we go. There's the beast.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, FM is a FM plugin, as you can imagine. With 13. Sorry?
FM. It's not FM, it's FM.
I wonder what this name might mean. Okay, it's an FM synthesizer with 13 operators, where 8 of them are the classic single cycle wave operators, plus 2 sample oscillators, plus noise generator, plus 2 filters behind all these sound generating sources. Each operator, let's start with this matrix page since I'm already on it. There are no predefined algorithms. You basically just route it as you like, so you can connect any operator to any other operator by just dragging the mouse. So there's, for example, this operator, it's operator 3 in this case, modulating operator 6. And the same is true when you want to go, when you want to create feedback. You can do operator feedback over any number of operators. Each operator comes with its own pitch LFO and its own level LFO, as well as a pitch envelope and a level envelope, and for sure the well-known keyboard scaling, so that you can reduce the amount of frequency modulation in on certain keyboard ranges. So as I said, it also has 2 sample oscillators. These sample oscillators or operators play multi-samples, as Biotech and Collective do. And there are 2 filters right after all these operators that you can feed any signal into, as you can see here, for example, here. And as you can see, you can feed filter 1 into filter 2 to have 2 filters in series. All this comes in on 2 layers, and each layer has a selection of 4 effects at a time, and an equalizer, not to forget that. So that's a rough overview of the machine. I didn't tackle everything because there is the extensive modulation matrix that Biotech also has, and so on and so on. So as Woody already said, it's really a huge beast.
Yeah, we definitely went deep dive on that one. I mean, it's got the cool things like the hard sync and stuff, which I know.
Oh yeah, sorry, forgot that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we should say, I mean, actually, it came up in, you know, we do trawl our forums and whatnot, and actually read that stuff. I mean, you know, KVR and the forums can be sort of tough places for a developer to hang out, because there's a lot of, you know, basically people only go there to post, you know, problems and issues. So, you know, you have to go in with a thick skin, but occasionally there's real diamonds and, you know, banter about what capabilities synth should have. This hard sync topic came up, and of course Taiho and Wolfram were aware of it, but I would say that, you know, the combination of it coming up via a user and our own desires to do it actually pushed it into version 1. So, you know, for you guys listening, you know, do go in and comment and, you know, give suggestions. They do find their way into the products.
Oh yeah, as you said, the sync feature, here it is, the sync feature. So you can say, okay, I want this operator to be synchronized, or in this case, yeah, to one of the later ones or one of the earlier ones. So sync is really quite flexible, and you can sync multiple operators to the same, and so on.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I guess the last thing is always sound design on this beast. I mean, again, you know,
yes,
we've gone in deep. I think we're up to what, over 600 factory patches already, and there's a bunch more planned actually in the factory pack. There's some new capabilities that the sound design team are going back and sort of featuring as well. And I will say that we've kind of made a big effort on this one to get what we sort of classified as classic FM sound designers and then contemporary FM sound designers, you know. So, you know, you're going to find a real mix of, you know, like I say, obviously the classic stuff, but also the newer edge stuff, which, I mean, FM is used heavily in sort of bass music, urban bass, drum and bass, and all of that kind of stuff that and Dave Rowland is a big drum and bass guy. I used to write drum and bass. So, I mean, it's a genre that we're passionate about. And of course, FM8 has been a very popular synth in that category. And, you know, our version just takes it up numerous notches. So, I mean, if you're into that side of things, you know, you're going to be really pleased. And classic FM. Now we're going to be importing a bunch of classic FM presets at some point, Wolfram, right, as well?
Yeah, playing presets is a little bit difficult because I don't have audio back into the stream, so it won't really sound like anything reasonable.
No, I mean the importing of the classic FM synth presets that are out there.
Oh yeah, this is going to be done at one point in time.
Yeah, and what's the volume of those? I mean, there's a lot of them, right? Which is why we're not doing it initially, and it will be a sound pack down the line. But what synths are there, and what volume of patches are going to be importable?
Yeah, basically the classic DX7 patches, and quite likely the DX21 patches as well. DX21 is similar to the TX81Z, and others in that range. They only differ very slightly. And as far as I've heard, there are more than 30,000 patches out there for these various synthesizers.
Yeah,
but people shouldn't expect too much from that, because it's basically like 35-year-old sounds, no effects. So it's not the most important thing for us to offer that, but it's on the list, and we are going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we all love sounds.
Yes.
Yes. Actually, while we're going along, I did see a comment in our comment section from HD Biker Budapest on a slight tangent, but I noticed it, and he's saying, too bad Spacecraft didn't come out on Linux yet. I will just sort of jump over to that before it disappears on our stream. To give you an update, Mark, as you all know, who's the developer of Spacecraft, was unfortunately the most hard hit on our entire team by COVID. I mean, not to go into too many gory details, but he spent 4 months in intensive care. Yeah, which gives you an idea of the extent at which, he was hit by COVID. Anyway, good news is he is back and around, and before COVID hit at all, Linux was on his radar. We're obviously not pushing him too hard to do it, but we're aware that there is demand and requirements there, and we'll see. It really comes down to sort of his availability to do it. So that's where we're at with Spacecraft. We're not forgetting it. We're all happy he's back, and we hope there will be some significant updates and stuff on that. Anyway, so back to new stuff. Let's jump over again, thinking of our video run through. So I think next would be Dave.
So
yes.
I've just got a few questions to pose to Waveform really quickly that have come up. The comments are coming in thick and fast, so I'm just trying to catch them as they come through. First of all, from Ronald, does each operator have its own filter?
No, now the screen is not shared anymore, so I can't show it. No, I thought about it, but in essence, in an FM synthesizer, you might use filters, but usually you don't. So I said, I think two filters are enough. And since you can route any operator into any of these 2 filters, that's pretty okay, I think. And never forget, you have 4 layers per sound. So when you really say, I need 8 filters in this sound, then just use 1 operator fed into 1 filter, and go to the next layer and do the same there again. So basically you have 8 filters in a sound.
And one other quick one, does each operator have its own keyboard level scaling?
Sorry, each operator has its own?
Keyboard level scaling.
Oh yes, sure, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, the comments are coming in fast. Really good to see so many people on here. So yeah, thanks.
I also saw something. There was a question if it has macros. We have a basic set of envelope controls where you can just make them more percussive or make the release a little longer. We also do have 2 XY pads, but they are not featured prominently, since it's always it's other way around. It's quite difficult to really put something interesting on those all the time, and so we figured we just have these envelope controls plus the ability, if you like, to have macros. So macros are still there, but they're not as prominently featured as on Biotech.
Yeah, and I don't mind saying, I mean, at one point in the development, we actually had a macros page, and we did the first round of sound design with macros in mind. But just FM synthesis and the way the rest of the synth is architected, it's so easy to assign all the pertinent controls that you actually don't end up using the macros nearly as much as you would with something like Biotech, where they're heavily utilized. So yeah, I mean, we built them in and had thought we would feature them more, and ended up sort of backing them down, because the way you use the synth, and I think you guys will agree when you get your hands on it, is you just don't need to use them that much.
Exactly.
So good. Well, let's keep on moving. Dave, Waveform land.
Yeah, so it's been a big. There's a lot of stuff happening on Waveform over the past sort of 6 months, really. I'll give kind of the update for the things that I've mainly been working on, and then I'll hand over to Roland for the more kind of visually interesting stuff. But we kind of had a big kind of scratchy head meeting several months ago, and we kind of, as Woody said earlier, we've been looking at the forums and feedback and stuff, and I've really kind of thought, what do people want us to do? And it kind of came down to several things. One was to fill in all the gaps that we've had for features that we've done previously, to just really kind of boost the level and the ability that you can do with things, and also spend a lot of time kind of bringing the engine up to date for the most modern machines. You know, it's not uncommon to have a computer with 24 cores these days, so kind of reworking the engine to utilize all of that power, and in the process fixing some of the long-standing edge cases with things like PDC across multiple tracks we've been working on. So they're kind of the main things, and also in doing lots of these changes, we've tracked down and fixed a hell of a lot of small bugs and things, so it should just be a much better experience now. So I'll just speak about the engine a little bit more. In the latest beta, which will be when we release it very soon, Waveform 11.5, you'll see an option to use the new engine, and that's basically be completely rewritten from scratch with a few goals in mind. The first is to fix plug-in delay compensation in some of the more tricky cases, like if you have an aux send going to a return on a track that feeds into another send going to return, or you've got multiple racks across different tracks.
Let me pause you there, because I mean, this comes up in meetings and it just melts brains. I mean, I don't know if you guys probably think about this, but you know, the way that Waveform is architected is essentially completely modular, and anything can be routed anywhere, which is why you guys love it. The downside of that versus some of the competition, where they have a much more sort of rigid channel strip approach, is that, you know, if you have a rigid channel strip approach and you always have a set number of like auxiliaries and they all go to particular places and returns come from particular, you know, doing plug-in delay compensation is still rocket science. But it's, you know, when you're talking about a system that's completely modular, where everything can be fed back in essentially a completely modular sort of format, plug-in delay compensation is literally like bending the laws of physics. You know, Dave's brain has gone to, you know, I don't know where it goes to figure this shit out. It's intense. So yeah, I just wanted to share that as kind of the non-engineering layman in the room who just goes, how do you figure this stuff out?
I don't want to get too technical because the details do get boring, but basically a lot of work has gone into re-engineering the engine to work in almost any situation, at least all the ones that I can think of. So as I was saying, those kind of weird complex cases, and also if you have internally in racks now, you have plugins with different amounts of latency, all of that will be perfectly balanced. On the kind of the next stage, what we've done is made racks actually part of the entire playback engine, so the overall latency is now reduced because it can all just feed into a single playback graph. So you should not only see proper plug-in delay compensation everywhere, you should also see less latency if you have these kind of complex racks and things like that. So that was one of the main focuses, but we also wanted to architect this for modern machines with dozens of cores, and also improve the performance. And the way we've done this is kind of just a different approach to the engine playback, and how much better it will depend on kind of the structure and the contents of your projects. But I typically see somewhere between 20 and 30% performance improvements on my machines. So it would be great for people to try it out and see what performance they can get out of it. Yeah, and as I said, in the new version, it will show an option whether you want to use it or not. And if you do find any issues, because it's still in kind of final stages of testing, you can always switch back to the old one. So that's kind of mainly what I've been working on.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that I mean that your general overall project is to get rid of some of the long-standing sort of, you know, real headache issues like plug-in delay compensation, and fixing them properly so that, you know, the platform moving forwards is architected in such a way that, you know, we can move forward for the next several years with a solution and implement the features that we want to do in the next several years on the right foundational architecture. You know, we've certainly been hitting up against some of the old paradigm stuff that just needs fixing. So, I mean, it's just a big, giant cleanup, refinement. Bill Edstrom is back on the team again. He kind of dips in and out based on his, you know, scenario, but he's back on the team, and he's doing some great videos, updating the manual, but also sort of in doing all of that, he helps clean up a lot of the language in the app. I mean, obviously, of course, this app has been in development for decades now. So, you know, just cleaning up terminology all over the place. I mean, there is a huge amount of small tweaks and changes and shifts that are being done all throughout the app at every level, you know, to really, really clean it up is kind of the goal. You know, and tackle, as I say, some of this big, you know, brain melting stuff. Dave, anything else from you, or should we shift on over to...
I'm just going to answer a few questions really quickly. Greg says, is Waveform still based on Juice, and how much of Jules's original code still exists? Does his fingerprint persist in code comments? It's an interesting question, actually, because it's nearly 20 years since Jules originally wrote it. And I would say there are bits still there, but almost everything has probably been rewritten at least once in that time. But Jules is still part of the Tracktion team. He does still write things. I talk to him, and Roland talks to him pretty much every day. And yes, I guess his personality is very much still across the code base. And yeah, it is still based on Juice. So
yeah, he's very much still the mastermind. He's you know, our business partner in the company. So his head, as you'll probably know, is, you know, fully entrenched in the development of Soul. If you haven't heard of that, go look it up. But essentially, it's an entire new coding language that intends to really jump the curve in terms of some capabilities. It's kind of shaders for audio. It's real stuff. So his head is in that. It has been for a couple of years, and it's ongoing. Soul is actually built into Waveform. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Dave, before we move on.
So, as you said, Jules has been working on this new program with Soul, and there is support for it in. So I've got really bad echo here. I'm hoping to put it right.
You sound good to me.
Okay, yeah, it's just me then. But yeah, so we have Soul support in Waveform, in that you can drag in Soul patches and they'll just appear as plugins. So it's kind of quite an early stage for Soul, but once Soul plugins start appearing, you'll be able to basically get extra content really easily, and they'll just appear. For developers, if there's any listening, Waveform is a really great environment for coding, writing Soul plugins, because you can have it running on a track with a MIDI sequence playing or something, do your coding in a text editor, hit save, and it will just reload it. And it really kind of reduces the kind of compile, edit, listen to what you've done feedback. So definitely one to check out if you haven't seen that yet. Yeah. I've got a couple more questions. Someone says, what's the preferred support channel to get assistance with Waveform and products? If you go to tracktion.com, and then under the training section, there's support. There's a whole bunch of support videos and access to the manuals, and also our support system. So that's the kind of the primary way to access that, and then it will get fed to the relevant person to help you with support. And the other question is, or comment, nice improvements. Is there also a native M1 version in the pipeline? I assume that's referring to Waveform. We actually have M1 support in the current beta, so that will be in 11.5 when it makes it out to the full public release. So yes is the answer to that. It's been a high priority for us. Yeah. I think, Roland, maybe when we hand over to you, could just open with some comments on the M1 stuff, because there are some slight differences with plugins, I think. So yeah, I think that's it. Do you want to hand over to Roland? You introduce somebody.
Roland.
All right, I'll take a couple more questions. So Mark asks about Big Sur. So all our products are working fine on Big Sur. I'm guessing this is more about Big Sur on the M1. So we have a native version of Waveform on the M1. Plugins like the DAW Essentials, Collective, Biotech, etc. Their M1 versions will be kind of coming in the next few months. So on the M1, Waveform, if it's running in M1 mode, can load Intel plugins as long as they're AU. So you can use M1 Waveform with your older Intel plugins in Audio Unit, but that's not true for VST. So we will be getting all those plugins updated.
Good old Apple. Don't we love them?
So I will share my screen and show a few of the new things in Waveform 11.5. So here's the new welcome screen. The idea is just to show kind of what you need when you run Waveform. So here's the recent things you've been working on, your project templates, your basic audio settings, and the latest news from Tracktion and training videos. If you still want the old project screen, it's still here. All the deep options are here, but 90% of the time when you launch Waveform, you don't need these. And we've done a good cleanup on the settings. So a lot of settings that people don't need often have been moved to advanced. General has been cleaned up and things have been organized into groups where they're commonly used. We've now had this favorite plugin list, so you can grab plugins you like and add them to the list. And then when you go to your plugin menu, now you have all your favorite plugins at the top, which is new. And under the Waveform plugins, these have been all reorganized in groups just to tidy things up. The feature that I've kind of spent time working on late is the range edit. So range edit was in Tracktion 11, but I've added just more features and UI improvements to make it easier to use. So traditionally in Tracktion, when you drag the cursor, it just moved the playhead. If you like this behavior, you can still go to the settings and get it back. But now you can optionally choose between range selection and selecting clips. And I like to toggle between that. So these menus are now customizable. That's why I had toggle to drag marked region here. So if I toggle that, I can select clips. If I toggle it again, I can do my marked region. And what's new is now, once you've dragged that marked region, you can resize it. And there's new options. Like if I don't want this drum hit here, I can just silence it. But now I have 3 clips, which is kind of annoying, so I can just select that and heal it. And now we're back to 1 clip, and the sound I didn't want is gone. We have other options there. So if I want to reverse just a part of the clip, I can do that as well. And if
these menus, these right-click menus, is a big area that has been cleaned up and added. So it's a lot more contextual than it used to be, even though it used to be pretty damn contextual. So
So I can just select this hit and just grab it and pull it out, which is nice. And then I have these gaps. I can consolidate it and make that section into one clip. And we did it other menus as well. So now from the right click, I can change my clip color, or I can adjust the gain. A lot of things just to make using Waveform quicker and easier. The other feature we added, which is going to be popular with the users of the free version who may not have much external hardware yet, is a built-in keyboard. This is a little hard to demonstrate on video, but whenever I press caps lock, letters on my keyboard are now a MIDI input. And then I press caps lock again, and the keys on my regular keyboard are back to doing hotkeys. So anytime you need to do a little MIDI input, just caps lock, and you can play. I think that's it for the kind of UI changes that I've been working on.
Yeah, I mean, Bill's working on a few update videos. I know any beta testers have probably been watching them, but there are almost uncountable numbers of tweaks and improvements, lots of small stuff, which is why this year, typically you guys would be used to us releasing a new version every year, and we chose this year to not do that and to spend an extended period of time doing all of this cleanup, tidy up. I mean, just stuff that honestly, between you and us, is stuff we wanted to do for a while. But of course, as the company's been growing, we've always been needing to chase revenue. And one of the silver linings of COVID is that music download software has been extremely popular. So we've taken the opportunity to take the time and really dive in and do this giant cleanup, at the engine level with Dave, and then just a massive sweep throughout the app and tidying up so much stuff. And like I say, Bill will be releasing a series of summary videos, but the upshot for you guys is that 11.5, as we're calling it, is free. So, as it should be, it's a cleanup. We have a bunch of really cool new features that are scheduled for this year as well for a version 12. And honestly, we're not entirely sure when it'll be ready. So, I'm not going to say it'll be, NAMM next year. It may be earlier. It may be NAMM. It may be later. We'll have to see. But, as I say, the goal of this 11.5, which is a free update to you guys, is to make it as clean, fresh, stable, just cleaned up, utterly cleaned up. So, yeah. Question.
I see a question.
Yeah, go.
From Mike here.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of questions. Sorry, which one are you about to answer, Roland? You go ahead.
These are destructive and which create a new file. So nothing there is destructive at all. Creates new files.
Okay. Right, I'll go back to a bit earlier on. Hexpert at 627 said ETA on 11.5. Black theme like in videos. Thanks. So ETA, we're kind of just tying up the final ends now. So have you got an ETA on, Woody? We're kind of it's video stuff we're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you guys are pretty much there on the code. So we're in a similar boat to we normally are at this stage of the year, which is getting through kind of all of our NAMM promotional stuff, which this year has been fairly quiet, but there has been a bunch of marketing work. So I think we're sort of planning on a couple of weeks' time. So it's imminent. It's really imminent. Very soon.
You can grab the latest beta as well. If you go to your downloads and then individual products, Waveform beta, you can try all this stuff that we're showing here. And as Woody said, it's pretty close code-wise. So check it out. Also, a comment on the black theme. Bill likes the black theme, and I think Daniel who works with Tracktion as well, he likes the black theme. The default is still the theme that Roland's got up, which has that slightly blue edge to it, but you can change that from the settings if you want to. Here's a slightly different question. Esther Estampia says, would you consider a session view similar to Ableton's?
No, we've never discussed that. It's never come up.
I guess what I would say to that is make a lot of noise on the forums, discuss it, and one of the things, as we've said, we do listen to stuff. So if there's a huge demand, it will perhaps bubble its way up.
Yeah, it comes up all the time. Of course, there are still several sort of really major sort of feature directions that we could go in. And whenever we talk about clip launching, session view stuff, I mean, we acknowledge absolutely it's such an entrenched workflow these days that yeah, I mean, we have to add it. I mean, it's one of those sort of things where we don't get super excited about it because other DAWs do it and do it well. So us adding it, it doesn't bring anything new to the table, but we do acknowledge that, we have a bunch of users that are jumping between these sort of DAWs, and it, like I say, it's become such an entrenched workflow, much like traditional timeline, editing. So yes, it's, we discuss it all the time, and it has to sort of balance in with the rest of our really, really innovative ideas for how we can bring features to market that potentially other DAWs don't do. We need to maintain our own identity, but also build this stuff in. So it's in the mix, we discuss it all the flipping time.
Yeah. I'm going to fire through a few more of these questions really quickly because time is ticking by. Someone says, check in on video sync support. Tracktion is a powerful creative tool, but composition sound design is not possible without sync. Any updates on that front? We did add a new video engine last year. I'm not sure if you are using that or not, but the sync should be better. Roland, is that, can you just show the setting for that? Because I think you do have to enable it, don't you?
Yeah, so for video playback, you can pick between the standard player and XJDO. I recommend the standard player on Mac OS because Mac OS has pretty good support for different video standards, but Windows may not have all the codecs installed, and that's a kind of place where a lot of people get stuck. So if you pick XJDO, then the video sync is a fair bit better.
Okay, another one, which is user-defined grid question. I think this has been added now. If user-defined, so rather than having kind of the adaptive smart grid, you can choose a specific grid. You can now see we have an option for that, so you can define what you want and it won't turn around on you.
I see a couple that came through. Estampida at 1037 said, which of these updates will trickle down to Waveform Free? Good question. Actually, Waveform Pro and Waveform Free are the same code base. So all of this benefits both of those. The only difference between them is the feature capability and whatnot. So we are 110% behind developing Waveform Free and continuing its evolution. And yeah, so 11.5, we're sort of shifting to calling Waveform Free by the year, because of course with it being free and no, I mean, it's irrelevant what version update you're on because it's always free. So you'll see us launching essentially Waveform Free 2021, which is 11.5 under the hood. So all of this cleanup, there are some nice new feature additions, there's some evolution in its capabilities, but all of this fundamental cleanup, the engine stuff, all of that is in Waveform Free. So yeah. And then right beneath that, Francois Allard at 1037 also said, will updated documentation be released? Yes, thank God. Documentation is one of those devilishly difficult things to maintain, especially on a platform like ours that evolves as rapidly as it does. Bill, over the years, is excellent at it, but he dips in and out, and he has other sort of commitments and activities he needs to go do. So fortunately, he's back in on the scene, and he is doing an update, a long-awaited update to our documentation. So there will be a bunch of videos, and there will be a significant update to the manual.
Yep. Another quick question from Harry says, can you create a folder to group plugins into folder vocals and add plugins related to vocals? Yes, you can do that. I think what you're referring to is a submix. So if you create a folder, add some tracks to it, and then add a plugin to that folder, it will turn it into a submix. So all those tracks get routed through the plugins that are on that track. That's been in Waveform for quite a while. Another question from Francois says, thanks for responding to my support channel question. My question was also about support forums, which I'm less familiar with. Any tips here are appreciated. So we did originally, years ago, we had our own forum, but we decided to stick with KVR because that's historically where the Tracktion forum was based, and there's a lot of very knowledgeable people on there. So if you want a kind of more community space, I would check that out. And also the Facebook user group is another place you can go to kind of discuss things waveform based. If you need to do like a formal contact with us, then the link I mentioned before is
I will throw out a name there, and that we added a new dedicated tech support guy this year, Ronald. He's an ex-colleague of mine from Mackie days, and brilliant tech support. He's worked in tech support for years and years, and he's now, since the start of this year, our full-time tech support guru. So, you know, when you go through on the support system, we utilize Zendesk, which is a ticket-based system that can then be routed to any member of the team, and it keeps all the threads all nicely. Very good system. But yeah, he's our front man these days. So yeah, go say hi to Ronald in support land. He's brilliant. And like I say, if questions are deep and need, you know, deep dive, they go to any member of this team to answer them. So it's certainly the spot to get the most accurate info. But you know, the Facebook user group is growing rapidly, and there are some really knowledgeable guys on there. And then KVR. Yeah, between those, you know, we should have you covered. But okay, we're kind of running out of time. Let's talk about something else new and exciting. All right, Wolfram, back to you, mate. Another cool instrument internally, and we don't have it quite ready to show you running, but we can certainly talk about it. Is the Dan Dean series, his Essential series. It's going to be a series. For those of you who don't know Dan, he's local to me here in Seattle. He is a very well-known composer, classical composer, and he's done sound design work or sample work for some of the real big instrument brands, you know, East, West, and stuff like that. So I mean, he's been around for years, and we're doing this really cool, you know, new series of extremely well sampled and lovely sounding, you know, real instruments. The instruments look lovely. But I would say, you know, before Wolfram sort of dives into them, the other thing we're providing with it is a bunch of construction kits, MIDI construction kits. So, you know, if you're like me and you don't play guitar, you know, there are a bunch of kits that give you all the nuance of how to get the very most out of these instruments, you know, in essentially MIDI construction kits. So you can get lovely sounding, you know, bass guitar, sounds into your sessions, and it's all implemented via Roland into our pattern generator stuff as well. So I mean, it's super cool. Anyway, I'll hand over to you, Wolfram, just to show it, or whoever's got it. Dave, have you got the screenshots of those? They're lovely. Our UI designer Sasha has just done a fantastic job on the user interface of these.
Dave seems to have them. Yeah.
There we go. Good.
What you basically said everything. They are meticulously sampled. Each bass comes in a round robin fashion, so that it doesn't sound like machine gun staccato. And it all is based on the Action engine, the same engine that also drives Biotech and the RetroMod plugins and Collective. Yeah, and it's basically a quick way to have a quite natural sounding bass sound to work with.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, so it's difficult to go into the technical details because
yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount of technical details about it, right? There's really nice basses for us. So yeah, that's coming. And then of course on our Tracktion Presents side of things, we are very excited to be working with Paul. What's his developer name? It's jumped out of my head. Dave, what's his developer name?
Wave Sequencer.
Wave Sequencer. There we go. Yes, on the Hyperion synth, which has been a sleeper project of his for just years. I mean, I think he's been coming up and talking to us about that NAMM for as long as I can remember. But anyway, he works for Intel day to day. That's his day job, and in his spare time, he's cooked up this monster of a modular synth. I think to describe it most simply, it's like Reactor, but far easier to use, I think is kind of how I would describe it. Who's got the screenshot of that? Roland, have you got that running somewhere we can show the guys?
Yeah, I've got it up. I can do a quick demo.
There was a video that we shared on KVR that a third-party guy had done a sneak peek of the beta, which was quite compelling. I think he just turned into Vangelis for about half an hour and just loved it.
So the idea is that you have all these nodes that you can wire together, red or control, blue or audio, and then green are also audio. The blue are per voice, and then the green are per layer. So this simple kind of 3 oscillator patch, the MIDI notes come in, go to each oscillator. Then they get mixed, filtered. We have one ADSR to control the filter, another ADSR to control the audio output. And then it goes into the reverb, which is now per layer rather than per voice, and the audio output. So this is a fairly simple patch, and then you can make things quite big, a lot bigger. So here we have kind of a big pad sound. It's constructed of 4 different layers. And then each layer will have its own node input, oscillators. We have little displays that you can route the output of whatever you're working with, so you can kind of get some visual ideas of what's going on. Huge selection of nodes. So we have mono oscillators, stereo oscillators, FM wave sequencers, pluck string samples. Then the FX, we have distortion, tremolo, reverb, echo. So you can build huge, complicated patches here.
I think what we'll do actually, when we actually roll this out, I mean, he does an absolutely wonderful job of walking through this. So of course, we'll do a deep dive with him. He's already done the start of a series of tutorials for the launch. I know we've got some questions coming in. When's it going to be available? I'm estimating probably within the next sort of month or so. Again, we're at the stage of sort of just getting the manual completed, getting the first round of tutorials completed and stuff like that. So it'll be soon, but yeah, we'll do a deep dive with him, and you guys can attend that and ask him any questions. And he's very responsive to feature requests. I mean, he built this thing because, I mean, as I say, he works for Intel, and he works in a very, very cool sort of deep research area of Intel where they build custom interactive solutions for big corporate clients. So, when you walk into lobbies of, very tech forward businesses, and they have these giant, video and audio installations that do crazy stuff. He built this specifically to make his life easier doing all of that. And so, I mean, he's extremely passionate about it, very receptive to, you know, adding stuff, you know, from the deep dive synth heads out there of you who have used Reactor for years and years. I saw some comments coming in saying, I've used Reactor and, you know, it'd be great if we could do this. So absolutely, you know, we'll get you guys on a live stream with him and, you know, have an open banter about that stuff.
Yeah, I just want to also add that this is an insanely powerful synth, and as Roland shows, you know, you can have multiple layers, so it's really customizable. But also, for those of you who might just be getting into synthesis and sound design, this is a really cool tool to kind of teach you kind of what happens in that stuff, because it's just a brilliant level where you can kind of build complex sounds easily, but you can also configure it all. So you don't have to go down into the kind of minutiae mathsy level that you might get with Max MSP, but you can still create something really amazing sounding quite quickly. And there's lots of good visualizers as well, so you can kind of see how doing FM synthesis changes the frequency spectrums and things like that. So definitely one to check out.
I did see one question about whether you could load different modules that you write yourself, and that's not available, but it's probably something he'll consider in the future. Maybe soul patches would be something good for him to support.
Yeah, that would be a really good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm scrolling up through the questions.
Yeah, there have been a couple of questions regarding the Dan Dean bass plugins. And another one at 6:45 p.m. there was the question from Ronald Leger, or don't know how to pronounce it. Did they say when they are going to release FM, or is it still TBD? Woody, yeah, when is FM released?
Well, from when is FM?
Okay, I'm trying as hard as I can to get it out as quickly as possible.
I'll put it this way. I mean, again, you know, in our younger days as a company, you know, chasing revenue was always the goal, because we're a bootstrap, self-funded team, right? So I mean, we did get stuff out, and then there was always plans to update it afterwards. And I'll say, with FM, we've really been disciplined to do a lot of that, what I call clean up, tidy up, refinement, try something. If it didn't work, pull it out. You know, all of that is happening pre-release this time. I mean, we're growing, we're evolving as a company. We have more resources now, you know, so we're taking our time a little bit more to get it right first time. So, you know, believe me, you know, when we showed it last year at NAMM, you know, we all hoped it was fairly imminent, and here we are 12 months later. But, you know, what you guys are going to see is that it is a real top shelf plugin. You know, it's very capable, very well thought out, you know, and it's had all that polish work done to it. So, you know, I mean, I think we're probably about a month out, right? I mean, you know, there are still a laundry list of things that Wolfram's working on, but nothing particularly major. Some cleanup stuff, a couple more tweaks here and there. I mean, it's been in beta for a while, so we know stability is great. So yeah, it's really just ramping up all the marketing elements now, which takes usually about a month. So yeah, that's where we're at. You know, you won't have long to wait.
Yeah. Then at 6:48, Tucker asks, is it only electric bass? That's referring to the Dan Dean bass plugins. The first plugin will be electric only, but there are a number of different basses like Fender Precision Bass, Höfner Bass, and so on. And there is a fretless bass as well in it. But at one point there certainly will be an acoustic bass plugin as well, but it's probably a separate plugin. At the same time, 6:48, Strange Delight asked, are these pure sample based or also acoustic modeling? They are purely sample based because those are the basses that Dan Dean loves the most. So those are his basses that he sampled. The ETA for Dan Dean VSTs, a couple of weeks after we have released FM. So that's the ETA.
If you do that
We've
too,
said it now.
Yeah, maybe a couple of months.
It's made a commitment.
Yeah.
Don't listen to Wolfram. I tell you.
No pressure.
Yeah, no, probably a couple of months. I mean, Dan's still working on sound design on it. I mean, you know, so yeah, I think realistically we'll release a couple of months out on that one, but you know, it's coming along nicely and it's a lot simpler than things like FM. So, you know, it's not a million miles out there. I know we only have a few minutes left, so I mean, it's a good segue into kind of the rest of the year. I mean, what we've talked about today and shown you today is only a small sort of snippet of what we have planned for the year. One of our other massive programs for the year is tons of content. You know, Taiho and Wolfram have assembled a much wider and larger sound design team than we've classically had. And it's all based around generating a ton of content for all of our other existing instruments as well. It's, you know, let's feed the addiction on all of the classics, you know, the Biotechs, even Collective, I mean, all of our instruments, even for the DAW, you know, getting MIDI packs for the DAW. So literally content is a massive, you know, goal for this year. So you guys have probably seen us adding some sound packs towards the end of last year. That the quantity and of those is going to amplify this year. You know, they prove really super popular, and they're really fun ways of extending kind of the inspiration period for all the instruments. We have a big update plan for Biotech, of course. A lot of the work that's gone into FM, because it's all the same engine under the hood, the same platform that Wolfram has been developing for, well, since we started Biotech. A lot of the stuff that we've been adding through the FM stage gets to benefit Biotech as well, as we'll do a big update to that. Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff. What have I missed, guys? Anything else? I've fried your brains. Poor guys are so overworked. They're just...
Yeah, I just like, there's been a couple of questions saying, are these going to be included with the DAW or in Pro, or are they separate products? And I guess you can probably clarify that, Woody, but these are all separate products that we've discussed, but they will be available in bundles of some kind. Yeah,
exactly. So they're all, I mean, the reason we do this and we sell them separately is obviously it widens the market for these plugins. So they will be added to the various bundles of the DAW. We have a wide, you know, number of folk who just want a bare bones DAW and no added plugins. So this is why, you know, from day one, we listened to the customers and that we had at that time, and they said, no, don't bundle a ton of plugins with it. We already have our plugins. We don't want it. So it's kind of led us down this path, and it's great for the business revenue as well. I mean, creating premium, you know, top shelf instruments and plugins that sell to any DAW user obviously is a much wider audience. So yes, they will be bundled in the standard and extreme bundles. We will obviously do some, you know, great, you know, initial offerings and sales. I mean, you know, you guys know us. There's always some great deals going on, so there'll be lots of those. Roland's got a bunch of cool new instruments and content for future versions of Waveform, but you know, you have to wait and see what's coming there. So there will be a ton of improvements to Waveform's own built-in stuff as well, but it's probably too early to talk about that quite yet, so watch that space. All right, anything else, you guys? Let's take a quick look through the questions. Any last minute questions? Anyone spotted anything you want to answer?
I think we've covered most of the things. There are some more sort of questions that would probably be better taken over to one of either the Facebook group or KVR. Not really kind of the thing that I think we should get into a rabbit hole discussing now, but I think we've covered most of the things.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, we're 2 minutes over, so this was fun. I think we'll try and do this a little more often. You know, we're all kind of getting used to our living out of our home studio offices. So yeah, let's watch out for announcements. You know, we'll feature our Tracktion Presents guys like Paul, Wave Sequencer, you know, to do some deep dives on the instruments. You know, we'll drag Wolfram out, maybe get some clothes on him so he can do a deep dive on FM when we're closer to that. So yeah, thanks for joining us. All right, guys, we're going to sign off now. Thank you very much for being here, and yeah, we'll catch up with you soon.
Bye, everyone.